Order. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, we had a slight cancellation on one item on our agenda, which is the Shelton Timberland Regional Library quarterly report that will be postponed to a later date. So at this point, we'll enter right into our commission weekly reports, and there's only two of us here tonight, so Commissioner Moore.
Yes, I'm still getting organized here. Okay, I have a very busy week this week, but so I don't put it off to the very end. I would just like to say that I met with Lisa Perry from Sierra Pacific last week, and we're moving right along with negotiations to get some of the equipment and some of the artifacts for our rail museum that we are working towards. So I'm really excited about that. It sounds really good. And she also had extremely high praise for both Steve and Jason and for the ease that they are having moving through the system here, and the good job that Steve and Jason are doing explaining the process and how we have to navigate it. So that was really good. So congratulations, Steve. Let's see. We also have on July 27th, Monday, which is next week, we will have a Metropolitan Parks District meeting at 1:45. And then my regular meetings this week, I have on Wednesday in the morning, we'll be meeting with the EDC for the SEDS list, which I have just learned that is a meeting where the port, the county, the city, other entities in the county get together and prioritize infrastructure improvements. So Steve and Greg are going with me. We'll get our elbows out and make sure that the City of Shelton improvements stay near the top of the list. I also have a meeting with a gentleman who's flying up who is potentially interested in starting a business in Shelton. He's flying up from Utah, and Steve is going to accompany me with that meeting. On Thursday, I have a Mason Matters meeting, and in the morning and on Thursday evening, I'm going to be attending the primary candidates forum. And on Friday, I will be attending Off the Walls Artist Show and Reception. And Off the Walls is the art gallery at the corner of First and Coda. Shelley's doing a great job promoting our downtown, and so this is one of her events. And that's where I will be.
All right. And I just was this afternoon out at an event at Alderbrook. It was Love Inc. is a local nonprofit that raises money to help less fortunate people find avenues to success. And so I was there, and it was a wonderful, well-attended event. I don't know if I won the golf ball drop or not, but I had 2 balls that came out of the helicopter, so I'm kind of hoping one of them got me that prize. And I will also be attending the Chamber KMAS political campaigning forum on Thursday. And that completes our weekly commission reports. All right, this is a general public comment period, since how we only have 2 people here. Then we ought to be able to make this one fairly not long-winded, but is anybody from the public like to speak? Now would be the opportunity. If not, there's a second opportunity later in the meeting. So, all right, moving on to the consent agenda. Are we ready for the reading of the consent agenda? Yes. Could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Vouchers numbered 86223 through 86340 in the amount of $391,551.90. Payroll warrants numbered 73903 through 74080 in the amount of $650,019.83. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of July 6, 2015, and study session of July 13, 2015.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
I second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda passes. All right. Next on our agenda is no old business at this time, but we have several items under new business. And the first is going to be something involving our financial services department, and that's Kathy Byerly is going to talk about a fee schedule change.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. I'm bringing the fee schedule before you again. This time, we just are requesting to add some additional planning changes to the fee schedule. And in the documents you have, there's a short list right up front that indicates the items to be proposed to be changed. And one is adding the appeal to the hearings examiner to a new fee of $1,000, the shoreline management application, an SDP that requires a public hearing before the hearings examiners, $1,000. Then the change of the conditional use permit from $600 to $1,000, and the change of the variance application from $600 to $1,000. So there's only 4 changes, just in the planning sections, the ones that were not included last time. So if there's any questions, Steve is here to answer them on these planning items. If not, then we would propose to place a resolution on the consent agenda for next week. So we're open for questions.
Or comments.
Or comments.
I feel very happy with the discussions that we've had so far, and so I am fine with just moving forward on this.
I do not want to hold this up. We did have a vote on this, and to remind the public that I was not in favor of raising those fees to the level that we raised them at this time, primarily because of our endeavoring to encourage businesses to come in and start building and rehabbing houses and do things like that. I just felt right now was not the time to raise them to the level they were raised. But we did bring them down considerably from the first conversation. So I think we're moving in the right direction in that we do recognize that if you raise fees too high, you will have less people probably wanting to partake in the wonderful opportunities we have here in Shelton. So I'm not going to hold this one up. What I'm going to do is, I believe Commissioner Moore agrees that we would recommend this, that as staff's request to place this item on the consent agenda for July 27th, 2015.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next is a resolution. Oh, let's see here. No, okay. This is an interlocal services agreement, and it's going to be brought to us by Mike Michael and maybe Greg Clark. So either one. Mike Michael?
You're going to defer.
All right.
I was going to defer to you. So, thank you, Mayor, Commissioner. What you have before you this afternoon, or this evening, excuse me, is a renewal of an existing interlocal agreement we have with Thurston County to support our EM&R folks. They currently are helping out with our in-vehicle and office communications equipment, as well as some equipment and vehicle maintenance work. This has been in place for 4 years, I believe now, and this is just an extension of that current contract that we use to support the staff that we have.
Okay, and I'm assuming that things must be going well, or you wouldn't be wanting to extend the contract.
I have heard nothing from the crews bad about this contract so far. So,
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm if it's not broken, don't fix it, so it seems to be a relationship that's working. So I have no problem in wanting to pass this and move this forward to the consent agenda for July 27, 2015, authorizing the mayor to sign. All right. And the last item under new business is a resolution, and this is adopting the comprehensive 6-year transportation improvement program for the city of Shelton, and this is going to be presented to us again by our engineer, Mike Michael.
Thank you again, Mayor, Commissioner. This is our annual update to the TIP. This is the first step in the process. RCW 3577 lays out the things that we have to do. It's part of the statewide planning effort to identify transportation projects moving forward. Each entity in the state's required to do a 6-year plan, update that plan on an annual basis, and then submit any of those projects that either are in the process of getting federal funding or have currently got federal funding, submit those to the state for inclusion on the statewide plan. Again, this is our annual process. We typically do it in the late June to early August timeframe like we are now. This will also be the final step with the Transportation Improvement Board in the future, where the local monies that are identified in the table will become a mix of not only general fund but Transportation Improvement Board monies, probably in next year's round. This year, there's only a few minor changes. 4 projects towards the top of the list have been adjusted for the expected current status as of January 1 of next year. And then an existing project that was on the list was replaced with a corridor study for the Railroad Avenue corridor between 11th and the city limits. Tonight, we are just asking for a commission's concurrence in the mandatory public hearing and setting that for 6 p.m. on August 3rd. And one final note, the draft public hearing notice that was included did have an error in it that we caught this morning. It had the deadline for comments to be the day after it was posted in the Mason County Journal, so we've corrected that.
That could cause some problems, couldn't it? So I had some questions about this just because I don't understand the system yet. So these items are, I see the ones that are highlighted. Those are the items that we have that are our priorities right now.
The highlighted items in the list are actually changes from last year's list. And again, the first 4 were just changes in dollar amounts, taking into account what is expected to be expended this year. And then the 5th item, project number 24, is a change to add this corridor study in place of a pedestrian improvement project that was there originally in the same corridor.
Oh, so because it's number 24 on the list, does that indicate the importance, or
No.
is the list just here just?
Yeah, the list is a holding place for our projects. There is some level of ranking there. However, that hasn't been updated since before I came on board in 2008. And actually, the ranking is, because of the mix of types of projects, the ranking is somewhat irrelevant because there are high-ranking projects that aren't available for the same funding as low-ranking projects. So it's really just a place to put us in position to be eligible, for the various funding sources, grant sources that are out there.
And if I understand correctly, we have to be on this list before we can receive federal funds?
That is correct. And in particular, we have to have submitted our list to the state and be included on the state list, actually. So.
Okay. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Well, this is just another step in the process. We've done this before, and just because we move this forward doesn't necessarily mean if funding is not available to do any of these projects, we do review this and we negotiate, and we have to discuss exactly how we fund these projects. And so it's still up to the commission to make the final decision on what we do in the physical realm.
That
But
is
this
very
is the,
true.
Right. This is the process that we are following, and I look forward to doing that. So I think we've had enough information to pass this on to the, well, wait a second, let me read my fine print. Yep. enough to set, we need to follow staff's request to set a public hearing, okay, for August 3rd, 2015. Leslie Ann, you did a good job on that because I almost messed up, but you got it in the fine print, so. All right, that concludes all of our new business for this evening. And now for a lengthy administration report offered to us by our pro tem administrator for 3 weeks, Vicki Look.
Me again.
Okay.
It's the city engineer show tonight, it looks like. So I'm going to step up real quick and add on a couple drawings.
Thank you.
Orient ourselves a little bit better. So this evening, you can see by the title, Lake Boulevard Sewer. This is, as we're getting closer to the bid opening for the Lake Boulevard Improvements Project, it was identified as a good time to come back and just refresh the commission on some discussions we had about an additive schedule of work that's in the bid right now that will be up for decision in a couple of weeks as far as award or not. And that is the sewer extension on Lake Boulevard from the end of the Basin 5 project at approximately 2nd Street out to the city limits. The first page that you have is actually an aerial photograph from the county GIS, kind of give you an overview of the area that we're talking about and the current level of development. If you flip to the back of it, we have a little bit more close-up view of particularly the Beverly Heights development, which is our primary goal of future service out there, and then some additional unplatted area between the end of the existing sewer system and the Beverly Heights plat. What you have before you this afternoon or this evening on that second sheet is just kind of a summary of the status of the properties out there. And one question in particular that has been asked of staff is, we know that area is on septics. How old are they, and how likely are they to need replacement in the near term? And so we did a little bit of work last week and researched the county GIS and assessors databases to kind of get a sense of that. And we've used the age of the house or structure that's on the property kind of as a reference to the likely approximate age of any septic system that's there. As you can see, we got a pretty even mix of currently developed and undeveloped properties in the area. There are actually a total of 62 developed properties, of which 11 are newer than 30 years. 30 years being kind of the industry standard for the life of a septic system. So we have over 50 properties out there with exceedingly old septic systems. In addition, there's about 50 tax parcels on here that represent 102 buildable lots in the Beverly Heights subdivision alone. In addition, we have about another 40 acres of undeveloped land between Beverly Heights and the end of the existing sewer system that could be subdivided and developed as well. In the last couple of years, we've had about 5 or 6 requests for information about potentially hooking up to sewer. Typically, the piece that turns them off is the fact that they're going to have to extend it from an existing terminus into where they need to be. That right now tends to be a fairly cost-prohibitive endeavor. Doing it as part of our Lake Boulevard project, we can make that process quite cost-effective by covering a lot of the costs with the actual road construction itself. Couple big pros and cons for it. Probably the largest negative for the project would be the fact that we're spending limited sewer resources right now to get this done. That being said, we have delayed a lot of operational projects, for lack of a better term, and ongoing operational needs that were planned in the comp plan and the rate structure that have not started yet, could be delayed further to help fund this. We also have some capital expenses that have not been incurred yet that could be mixed and delayed. And finally, we have the halfway signed memo of understanding with our regional partners to use those replacement reserve funds for the satellite plant as an interim funding mechanism if necessary. DOC signed that about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It's now in the hands of State Patrol for their signature, and they have indicated that that will happen. Biggest benefit is by doing the work now, we don't have to worry about cutting brand new pavement that will be down and complete here in about 18 months. That's a pretty costly go back and do again if there was a big push to have to get the sewer in after the pavement work is done. We also reduce our risk of further septic system development in the area, the environmental impacts associated with that, et cetera. And the list goes on both sides. At this point, given the whole picture, it is staff's recommendation that should the prices come in within a reasonable range, that we do move forward with this as part of the project. So that's what we're here for this evening, is to kind of give you an update on some of this additional information. And based on our last engineer's estimate, where we're seeing the market at, we're still hopeful that it's within the range that we originally gave you a couple months ago, maybe on the higher end of that, but it still does appear to.
250,000?
250 to 350,000 was what we had mentioned about 2 months ago, and it seems like it should still be right in that range. Maybe a little bit closer to the higher end of it, but still within the range.
I'd like to speak to this first because we've been talking to staff. I have been talking to them ever since this issue kind of came up, and I would like to commend you for looking outside the box and looking for options, figuring ways which we could do this. At first, I was really greatly trying to say, is there not a way that we can put it next to that road at a future date? Again, always the finances of the city are a great concern to mine, not to extend infrastructure into a future that we're not positive how fast it's going to hit us. And you looked at that. I think you thought about that and looked, and then you came back with, it's really got to go into this road. As an ex-builder, I'm a big fan of putting underground infrastructure in if you're paving a new road. This has never been an idea that I'm against doing things right. I am for doing things right, but obviously we have something called a budget and finances. And so I know you guys have worked overtime trying to figure this one out. If things go in the direction that it appears you're talking about, and if we can take some money from here and and this thing can come together. I know the word Lake Boulevard has been on everybody's lips out in the community for the 4 years I've been sitting here and getting close to doing the project. We do want to do the project right. So I'm leaning in the direction that if we can get, that I can grasp the financial picture on this, and that when we start that project, we can actually, but if it was only for 6 hookups a year and that's not certain and all of this stuff, I'm just, I would have to wait until the final pictures before me, but you've done a great job so far in attempting to listen to what my concerns were about it, and that's how can we afford to do this? And so I think I'm leaning in the direction of approving this. It's just at some point, some of these things we have to look at realistically on how much growth is going to happen in what area at what time. So that's the only comments I think I would have at this time. So
I really appreciate getting the ages of the septic systems that are out there, because I having worked in that arena, I know what happens when septic fails, and we don't want to be putting new septic systems out there. So if we vote to move forward on this, is it already an addendum to the contract, or would we add it as an addendum to a contract, or would we have to go out to bid for a new contractor to do this work?
It's right now a separate schedule within the proposal that's out for bid right now. It's an optional schedule. There are actually 3 schedules being bid. There's the main schedule, which is the road work and stormwater work. There's a second schedule, which is the water enhancements that we've previously talked about, and then a third schedule, Schedule C, that is this sewer enhancement. So the way we've structured the bid documents, we'll award Schedule A, the main work, and then B and C are optional based on the prices of it that are bid on those schedules themselves. So we can award A and any mix of B and C with that.
Okay.
This is just a touch. This here is just a touch. We're
This
not,
this is just informational prior to the bids coming in early next week, and then the follow-on process after that. So
When is the bid opening?
the bid opening is now on the 28th. It was originally scheduled for the 21st, but due to some minor corrections to several drawings, we felt that it was best to extend that out a week to give the contractors ample time to look at the drawings that we had to resubmit to them and verify for themselves that it's non-critical, non-impactful changes that were made to those drawings.
So each of the contractors that submit a bid will submit options, all
B
the
and
options.
C.
So
Yes,
that-
that's
okay.
correct.
And so they will be, the same contractor will be capable of doing all of
Yes.
the work? Okay.
and if things go really well, it's possible that this might come in under budget. And I mean, all I can say is hope for the best, right?
It's very possible. We have and continue to see in our region, even though not necessarily close around us, very good bids. My staff and our project teams have done an excellent job in the 8 years I've been here of keeping the contractors in line and keeping our prices under control. We have yet, I believe, to have a project that's gone over budget. I think we've been in the best of the ranges, industry-wide. 10% over is not unheard of. I don't think we've gone above about 2% over on any of our projects right now. And most of our projects, we've actually been under the original awarded budget.
All right, is that all you have to say about this
That's
subject
all
tonight?
I have this evening.
Okay, according to my notes, it's turned over to City Administrator Pro Tem Vicki Look for any future administration reports. All right, then we are open for another opportunity for the general public comment, 3 minutes. If no one has signed in, then what we'll do is move into the next bullet point, which says turn over to City Administrator Pro Tem Vicki Look for any administration final touches. By the way, just everybody, this is kind of an inside joke, is our administrator, Dave O'Leary, he's gone for a couple of weeks, and so Vicki is filling in for him. So I like to kind of rub it in and do these things to just kind of bug her. So if anybody out in TV land doesn't quite get that, that's kind of what we're doing. But I didn't write her name twice on there to do that. So maybe Leslie Ann, you're trying to bug her too. Is that what thank you. So we have a tag team on that one. So, it's been a great meeting. Thank you all for coming out.
Steve has a,
Oh, Steve had something to say?
yeah, final touches.
Oh, I was excited about closing the meeting. But Steve, what do you have to say?
In an attempt to bother you, I have another item before you close.
No. Listen, this is your opportunity to speak.
Just a simple touch. The Human Services Committee would like to provide a update report and specifically a concept plan for the temporary public restrooms. Wanted to bring that forward next week. It's really just an informational item.
Okay. Any other administration final touches?
Looking ahead.
Right
So
here?
It is a newer version than what's in the packet.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be July 27th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.